So Danielle, the Ellen MacArthur Foundation really has led and pioneered the popularization of a circular economy for, I don't know, how many years now has it been?
16.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Tell us the story of how it got started and how you were able to, and I mean you in the larger sense, the whole group was able to create a movement, a kind of a, I'd say, I don't want to say a niche movement, but a movement that appeals to a certain set of people across boundaries. A lot of people in the corporate world and the activist world and so on who all are inspired by this. How did that happen and where are you today?
So Ellen MacArthur, our founder, was a sailor. She set the record at the time for sailing around the world. She did it in 71 days, 14 hours, and I forget how many minutes. But quite quickly, she had a finite set of resources with her on that boat. And she had to be really creative around, especially not knowing exactly how long it would take her, right, to circumnavigate the globe. Very thoughtful and very in tune with the resources that she had available to her. And when she came on shore 71 days later, she launched this idea of the circular economy. And if you've ever been in a room with Ellen, you know that she very quickly gathers steam and support and resources. I don't know if anyone has ever effectively said no to her, but she built the organization on that very simple concept. And a lot of the concepts that you just talked about, right, is how do we think about the resources and the world that we're living in differently and with a different mindset. Yeah. The ways that fundamentally the foundation works is to work by design with businesses and policymakers to think about what are the ways in which we can design our systems and our products and our materials and our infrastructure and our supply chain so that we don't get to a point of wasting those materials and ending that line. And this may be more than you're asking for, but in terms of the where we're at now, you know, I think the past decade and a half has really been about building visibility for the circular economy. What is this concept? Shifting some of that mindset at the nodes of the economy that can make change and can influence change. So at the federal and the state level with business executives. And we have witnessed the building of a movement, and there are so many case studies and so many bright spots and so many models, so many technologies and innovations that we have seen work. We are getting stuck on the scale. We're getting stuck on truly embedding into our systems and our processes and our policies to, as you said, not feed the line, but feed the circle. Yeah. And so part of what we're doing now, and this is such an incredible initiative to be launching at this moment because it really does take collective energy and work. Part of what we're doing now is thinking about what does that implementation and scale look like, and how can we get folks around the table to move projects from being a project to being real systems change. And that's hard and it's much messier than where we've been before, but it's where we need to go. Terrific.
And how can we be most helpful in advancing that objective? What's a role that you see as important so that we can get up on the right foot?
Yeah, I mean, so a couple of different ways. You know, I think rooms like this, we're preaching to the choir, but in a good way. We are building the muscle and the practice and the collaboration and making sure that we are not being redundant in our efforts, that we've got the right folks in the room. I think what's so important, and have had some of that at Earthx over the past couple of days, how do we get into the rooms where circular economy isn't on the agenda? How do we talk to folks who don't know what it is, who are doing it? There's a lot of circular economy that's happening in nature, if not in name. I was at the eCapital Summit yesterday, and there were panel after panel talking about different business processing systems. All of them were circular in some way, but they weren't being entitled that, and that's fine, right? So I think part of the support for rooms like this is to figure out, how do we get into rooms that make us uncomfortable, or where we're talking about this for the first time, or where we have not the same set of values that we're all working with together. I think that's really part of that nonpartisan agenda that you were talking about. It always has been nonpartisan, but it's particularly important right now that we treat it as such.
It is critical that we treat it as such. And in this room, we have a choir, but we have a choir with a lot of different kinds of voices in it. There's tremendous diversity here that you really don't generally see at a sustainability event. There's more of a standard group there. How do we maintain that and prevent, a political media system that is very hungry to turn any bipartisan effort into a partisan, polarized effort, and to typecast this? How do we avoid that? And I'm sure you've had conversations.
Well, if I knew the answer to that question. I think some of it is, some of what's getting in our way is language. And the circular economy as a term has had a very environmental and nature-focused connotation for good reason, right? That is a part of the value proposition for circular economy. But right now, for better or worse, that is politicized. And so I think it's, for us at the foundation, what we've started doing is thinking about, like, what are we actually substantively talking about in terms of systems change or process change, and just use that language, the language of the folks that we are trying to influence, and not be so precious about our own.
Yes. So you can use the language that they understand and that conveys it to them. And I'd say, in a way, it's kind of wonky language. It's one of the things that I kind of like about this is that circularity is, first of all, everybody likes a circle. Circles are, broadly appealing, and I think we like a circle because it's natural and because it conveys wholeness and conveys really life. I think we associate it with the circle of life, and so it has a natural base on both the political left and the political right that is not really partisan in nature. But we certainly have seen over the last few years, as our politics have divided, that on the right, part of the coalition that elected our current president was the MAHA coalition, Make America Healthy Again. And while there are certainly extremes to that and to any, one of the continuous elements of that is an appreciation for nature. That the MAHA movement has a lot of, MAHA moms, as they call them, who want to live more natural lives, and they may be taking a more conservative approach to living a natural life, but they like that, they find that appealing, and they are natural for us to bring into a movement that is more bipartisan in nature.
Well, and I think that you're hitting on something that is just so fundamental to the circular economy right now, which is about our natural resources. And EMF focuses on 3 material streams: textiles, plastics, and critical minerals. There are others, but those are the 3 primary where we have opportunity in the circular economy. And the very nonpartisan truth of those materials is that we are depleting them, and it is raising the cost of those raw materials for businesses, for everyone, right? And so we are going to need to find alternative and secondary solutions to the ones that we have right now, which are largely extractive. And critical minerals is a perfect example of this right now, where there's just not enough supply of the critical minerals that businesses and industry needs to power the digital and the energy transformation that we're seeing. And so it almost becomes it is a nonpartisan issue, right? To figure out creative ways to reach that. And part of what I think, your question around what can this room do, we need to make sure that circular approaches in secondary markets are on the radar, and that folks are educated about what's possible for circularity.
Yes, yes, excellent. Well, I want to invite now Karen Warner to join us. And Karen, and let's give Karen a round of applause and welcome here. Before California became known for Silicon Valley and the technology sector, California was, one of the great breadbaskets of the world. And the Central Valley in California is the region that still leads in. I mean, if we're buying and eating fruits and vegetables, they probably came from, no matter where we are in the country and many places around the world, they probably came from the Central Valley. But the Central Valley has been kind of an afterthought economically in California to the technology sector for a generation or two. And now that can begin to change. And Karen Warner is one of the leaders and the practical visionaries that is bringing this about and helping to grow a bioeconomy in California's Central Valley. I was at a conference that she put on with, 300 folks, and a lot of entrepreneurs. So impressive to see the people who are starting businesses using the residuals, as they call them, from agriculture to create plastics and plastic substitutes and all kinds of products with very, useful applications at a low cost, with the potential for tremendous growth. Karen, tell us how this is happening in California and where you expect to carry it.
Absolutely, and I'm so happy you used the beautiful circular economy model that our team uses all the time, by the way, on that last graphic. So Beam Circular is a nonprofit organization that was launched a little over 3 years ago, coming out of a community-driven economic development planning process in the Central Valley. Our community was really interested in how we could attract and grow emerging industries, diversify our traditional agricultural economy in ways that would increase access to high-quality jobs. We are a traditionally disinvested region, but we have this incredible abundance and strength in food and agricultural production. A third of the vegetables in America and 2/3 of the fruits and nuts come from California, and the engine of that production is in the Central Valley. So our organization was launched to pull together the capital, the partners, and the policies and strategies to grow a circular bioeconomy sector in California, really focused on that renewable resource management aspect of the circular economy model as a whole. And our organization focuses on scaling innovations that take biomass waste, and in particular, food and agricultural residues and side streams that are already produced every single day across our state and in rural communities beyond, and transforming those different waste streams or co-products and byproducts into new valuable bio-based products. And we work across fuels, materials, chemicals, and food ingredients, nutraceuticals, really everything that you can do using the power of biology. This is a lot of different types of technologies and a lot of different types of business models, but at their core, this represents a new growing industry that reduces emissions and pollution. We were rethinking waste as really recognizing the value that's already there. It's a very natural way of thinking about systems and regeneration, because in nature, you really don't have that concept of waste. Things are put to value just naturally through a symbiotic process. And just in kind of my 3-second form, the way we're thinking about this is really investing in the enablers for the circular bioeconomy to grow, from workforce development to shared infrastructure and supply chain development, really targeted R&D and innovation partnerships, and community and collaboration. That includes some really major shared infrastructure projects like the California Bioeconomy Innovation Campus, which was written into state law in California last year as part of the Budget Act, which we're very excited about. So we are thrilled to be breaking ground on this campus this year. We have our founding partners, our initial startups in the pipeline, and this campus is really providing critical service services and shared equipment, capabilities, and infrastructure to help de-risk these technologies, which often get caught in that scale-up cycle. We need to get more of these incredibly powerful innovations and technologies into the market and really in production at commercial scale. This doesn't happen without a partner ecosystem, which you experienced, Bill, with us in the Central Valley just a few months ago. We really, our partner collaborative is called CBio Collaborative, and it includes industry partners from early stage startups to some of the largest multinational biotech and manufacturing corporates in the world, local government, state government, community-based organizations and labor organizations, and then universities and community colleges. This collaborative approach has allowed us in the last 3 years to mobilize over $46 million, which is just really the seed for what is a growing capital stack of public and private investments in this space.
I want you to just slow down with that number because that is tremendous. What a tremendous
I was like, I promised I would make this 30 seconds long, so I'm just like powering through.
$46 million that has been invested in this so far. I mean, that's a tremendous accomplishment. And
And more exciting for us is the really fast momentum on the impact side. So we've supported 28 companies over the past 18 months. Every single one of those companies is advancing and scaling a technology that's turning food and agricultural waste from the Central Valley of California into bio-based products, again, spanning from organic certified bioherbicides being produced by a farmer named Edgar Perez in Turlock, California, using sweet potato peels and nut waste, to a company called Tasty Tape in our current accelerator cohort that takes fruit and vegetable scraps and turns them into a fully biodegradable plastic film to cover those sandwiches in 7-Eleven with something that's non-toxic. Really wide range of projects, and I wouldn't be doing my job as a nonprofit CEO if I didn't flag that we would love for all of you to become a part of this, and we are convening our next group of folks in just a little later in May, and if you want to connect with really inspired students, companies, entrepreneurs, investors, we sure would love for you to join us as part of this continued growth of Circular America.
it really is exciting. It's for, as somebody who grew up in Silicon Valley, and when my family first moved to Silicon Valley, it wasn't called Silicon Valley, it was called the Valley of Heart's Delight. This is the Valley of Heart's Delight, and it was just beautiful. It was filled with orchards, and orchards to me were nature, because I thought that was nature. But it was, close to it, and we used to have a wonderful time going through the orchards. But of course, our home, like all the other homes, were on old orchard land that was quickly being converted, and that experience of watching that be converted was certainly what alarmed me enough to become very early in my life an environmentalist. I just saw, oh my gosh, if this is what we're doing to the living ground, and I'm seeing it happen everywhere, we are literally destroying the planet, and I'd better do something about it. And that became a lifelong obsession. So I hope that we can see a different model of development in California's Central Valley to retain that agricultural base, but shift it from an industrial to a regenerative agricultural base and a circular one where we are producing many products from agriculture and enlivening the soil so that the soil itself becomes a carbon sink that can help to balance our atmosphere. So thank you for everything that you are doing, Karen. So, thank you, Karen. And now I want to bring up, and then after we have a little conversation with John, we will leave the stage to John. John Warner, if you can join us here. John Warner, along with Paul Anastas, is the father of green chemistry. Wrote a book in the 1990s, I believe, that laid out the 12 principles of green chemistry. There are a few people in this movement that can really inspire us with the potential of this, and John, for me, is one of these. He has spent his life as an inventor and has, I think, 260 or more patents to his name now. But he admits that there is much more to be done. And I think we can be helpful to John in enabling that. So before I give the stage to you, John, just welcome and tell us a little bit about your background and how you ended up in this arena.
Thank you. I don't call myself one of the fathers. There are fathers, mothers, aunts, uncles, grandfathers, grandmothers. There's a whole lot of people behind green chemistry, and I have a lot of help. Just really quickly, just to try to understand, when I was 28 years old, I was probably one of the most successful chemists on the planet. At 28 years old, I already had 50 or 60 patents, a bunch of awards. I was on the cover of Celebrity magazine. My head is this big. I am the greatest scientist who ever lived. And I lost my 2-year-old son to a birth defect. And lying in bed the night of my son's funeral, I'm asking myself, did something I touch in the lab cause this? Did something, heaven forbid, I got an award for? And I realized, here I have a PhD from an Ivy League university, and not one moment was spent talking about, if you make a new material, how do you know, is it going to hurt the environment? Is it going to hurt the human health? And I realized that the field of chemistry has evolved completely not talking about this. And although that's horrible, it's also, well, wait a minute. What if we started teaching chemists these things? Maybe they would start inventing better technologies, and that's the birth of green chemistry. And there are thousands of people around the world making amazing things happen, but it's that first thought. When someone invents a technology, at that moment, if they're thinking about the downstream impacts on human health and the environment, it's when they have the most opportunity to manipulate and create a better technology. After it's out there, it's too late.
Well, John, let's have us leave the stage, and I want to leave you with the stage to give people an overview of green chemistry and of where we are and where we're going with it. So the stage is yours.